Hello, everyone. Sorry we're a couple minutes late today, but we do have slides. Welcome, welcome. My name is Kayla. I'm the founder of the Operation Childcare Project, here with another Ask Me Anything. And I also have Maria. Say hi, Maria.
Hello.
Maria is a military spouse as well and childcare advocate. She volunteers some of her time here with Operation Childcare Project. And so she'll also be able to assist with any questions that you have as we go in the chat boxes. So what we're going to be talking about right now, you may have seen it come out. There's been a lot of articles and a couple of questions that have come through on the Caregiver Travel Reimbursement Pilot Program. Maria, do you want to give a little bit of background on this one?
Yeah, this is a really cool one. And it's been so neat to see this picked up by all the media sources, see it across all of the social media to make sure that everybody is aware of this. And this all started with an idea. This is such a cool example of leaders paying attention and noticing a trend and then going after a creative solution to make sure that we are all ready for the mission. So this came out of a situation overseas where folks were coming overseas and not being able to access care right away to show up to work. They were utilizing their personal leave. They were running out of leave to try to cover down while they were patiently waiting for access to care. When some of them could have brought over a family member, but honestly, they couldn't afford the cost for that overseas ticket, which we all know has continued to increase over time. And so the idea was, gosh, if we could remove that barrier for them accessing safe, trusted care when they needed it, what would that look like for the mission? So here we are 5 years later, due to one person's incredible commitment to the cause. It just came out in the NDA in FY23. So that's really the background on this and why this is so cool. So the bottom line is this is talking about a reimbursement for travel for a trusted caregiver at your next location. And here's the key. It has to be somewhere where there's a CDC. So if you are on that CDC wait list and you're not going to be able to access your date of care need within 30 days of that, then you will automatically be contacted, which again, kudos to militarychildcare.com for making this streamlined and straightforward for families. Anything that can remove the steps, the concern, the unknowns is a huge win for all of our leaders, all of our families, and our mission at large. So here's the numbers, right? CONUS is going to be $500 for a reimbursement for that travel reimbursement. And what you didn't hear me say is anything about a child care entitlement, right? We're talking about a travel reimbursement for families. So $500 if it's a CONUS ticket that was purchased, or $1,500 if it's a CONUS ticket that's purchased. Over to you, Kayla.
Thank you. I'm always very impressed when we get to see new initiatives like this, born from a need, where somebody, really encountered an issue and they thought, how can we make this better? And so just incredibly impressed by, of course, the individual who pushes forward, but everyone who's helped along the way. So let's dig into it. Who can use this? This is what we know, and this is what we're still learning. So what we know is it's service members in a PCS. Specifically called out are Air Force, Army, Coast Guard, woohoo, Navy, Marine Corps, and Space Force. The Guard Reserve would be activated and under a part of that as well. You have to have an authorized dependent travel on your PCS order. So this is one of those times where it's going to be really important to check those orders and make sure everyone is on it if you intend to use this. I know a lot of families, we hear them say, oh, well, we'll just move ourselves or figure it out later. If you need to utilize this, they have to be on the orders. Authorized dependent is added to the CDC wait list through militarychildcare.com. So that is also, you cannot make it even to step one without getting this done. So if you don't already have a militarychildcare.com account, you haven't attempted any access yet, you absolutely have to go ahead and get one of those created. And as Maria said, your anticipated placement time. So when you put in your date of care needed, your DCN, your anticipated placement time is at least 30 days past what that is. If you've used militarychildcare.com before, you know what's going to show up is it's going to say things like anticipated placement time 3 to 4 months after DCN, your date of care needed. So that is going to vary by installation and your priority status. So something to take a look at while you're on there. What we're still learning about is if you are on separate orders. We know that sometimes for a number of reasons, families will get orders and then they'll decide to geobatch. Maybe they'll get separate orders, especially our dual mill families. And so if it is separated, if the children are separated, we're still kind of figuring out right now what is going to happen if they want to access this program. So you're going to have to stick with us as we learn this. We will be pushing that out. Next is the fine print. So this is what we're here for, the fine print. What we want to know here is, or what we want you to know is that it is commercial travel only. So this is a reimbursement for the commercial travel. So commercial is airplane, train, bus, car rental. It is not mileage. So you cannot have someone drive and then be reimbursed for that mileage. It also does not cover anything visa or documentation wise. So if you are OCONUS and you do need someone to fly out to you, there's no language in here so far that says anything about how you will be assisted with passports, with visas, with anything that needs to be paid ancillary to that ticket. So something to keep in mind. We know that the caregiver cannot be a dependent. So they cannot be listed as a dependent of yours. The child must be of CDC age. I did asterisk this because CDC age is typically seen as 5 and under. And oh, I think I froze. Did I freeze or can you still see me? Just a second. I want to make sure that because we are going to record this. Okay. CDC, the child must be of CDC age. We typically see that as 5 and under, so not school aged. But the language here did not call out any specific ages. It says care at the CDC. We're going to talk about this on what we're still learning with EFMP families because I know that that will vary. But as of right now, this is the language. If you are dual military, only one of you can utilize this reimbursement. You're supposed to be making the decision of who your trusted caregiver is together. So you cannot bring 2 caregivers on one set of orders. Your caregiver must be 18 years old. And your designated caregiver must be named and submitted. So we're going to talk about that briefly in some later slides where we go through what the process is. But the language specifically calls out that your caregiver must be named and it must be in writing. So what we're still learning a lot, but right now where I'm focused is our EFMP families. So again, the verbiage reference care at the CDC, we know that EFMP families really struggle to access care, period, because of maybe some additional medical or behavioral needs that they have. We also know that some families are really fortunate to be able to get their children into CDCs where they can accommodate those special needs. And that means that sometimes you do have a 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old in a CDC, depending on which installation you're at and what the capabilities are. We do not know if that makes them eligible for this program. I'm going to say based on the language right now, it's absolutely worth a shot. And it's something that we're happy to explore with you, but we do not have language on that and we're still waiting. Once the memo is created, we're going to kind of go through that process. The process for reimbursement does not lie with militarychildcare.com. So we are still learning, what does that timeline for reimbursement mean? What is the turnaround? Is it with your regular PCS vouchers? We're still learning. So as we figure that out, as we see more families experiencing this and giving us what their experience is, we'll be sure to pass that on. Okay, next. The process. So the process, as we said in the first, or as I said in the beginning, it is initiated through a travel memo. You have to get it from militarychildcare.com. So after you receive your orders and you have your authorized dependents on it for your new duty station, you're going to log into your MCC account or sign up for one. You will use your typical Find Childcare, sign up for the CDC waitlist at your upcoming duty station. And that's how you first trigger this. I want to note here, it is triggered after signing up for one CDC. So you don't have to sign up for every CDC. If you're going to a place like JBSA, where they're going to have 7, just one, if you need that travel memo, and it will be populated after that. I do want to take a second here just to go through, based on our last Ask Me Anything, we did not this is Air Force Space Force families specifically. If you were at our last Ask Me Anything and you heard us talking about kind of the punitive actions we were seeing being taken against some families who requested CDC care, and they either missed the offer or they didn't respond or they declined the spot because that isn't working for their families. Those families were then later denied the military fee assistance program for a year, was the verbiage that was utilized. There are exceptions to policy to get through that. And we've helped a couple of families through that process, but we have not seen any official guidance on whether or not this is policy, and whether this is something that every family that is Air Force or Space Force needs to be prepared for. As a result of that, and this is just an asterisk here, we have stopped advising Air Force Space Force families to join all the wait lists without understanding that there could be implications, and they may have to do additional work as a result. Nowhere, very clear, nowhere in the NDAA language or the JTR language does it state that you have to stay on the CDC wait list. So once you have that memo, and it's generated, this, I'm going to show you on the next page. If you determine that CDC care is the best fit for your family, stay on the wait list. If you think that it may not be the best fit for your family, or you're not sure and you are an Air Force Space Force family, I just encourage you to really think through staying on that wait list. You can, there's nothing that says you have to access this, is the top line. So you can cancel your request for CDC care through your dashboard as well. You would go under My Child Care and click on that CDC request after you have your memo, and you'll have the option to go ahead and cancel that. Oh, my mouse is going crazy. Here we go. Okay, next. No one tried to read the tiny print here. I'm going to show you a bigger one on the next slide. So once you select Get a Travel Memo, which I'm sorry, I should have the giant red arrow here. So once you select, I skipped a part. You will not see the option to create a travel memo until you hit submit. So when you go in through the CDC, you request your CDC, it's not going to automatically say get a travel memo because it's more than 30 days out. You have to go through that whole process and hit submit. When you go back to your dashboard, this will now be populated. You can select Get a Travel Memo, and then we're going to move on to what that next pop-up is. Down here is just for note, you can request that travel memo 90 days prior or 90 days after your date of care needed. The memo has to be submitted for reimbursement within 1 year of your report date, though. So if you think, oh, I literally just missed this, we just PCS'd and I didn't get it, you can do it 90 days prior or after your date of care needed. So it may not be too late. Absolutely log into your militarychildcare.com account and take a look. Now I will go to the next one. We have pretended that you have clicked Get a Travel Memo. All right, here we go. So once you select Get a Travel Memo, there is going to be a pop-up. That's this first section here. You're going to need to select the duty station that you're going to in the drop-down menu. It should be the duty station. The only one that should populate is the one that you already requested CDC care at. So once you click confirm, you're going to experience probably like a 2 to 10 minute delay. And then you're going to receive an email. So everyone who's listed on your militarychildcare.com account will get an email. I trialed it. My spouse and I both got them. And you're also going to be able to see the exact same memo in the notification section of your MCC dashboard. So if you go to your dashboard and click notifications, it'll be dropped in there just like it's an email. I'm going to show you what that looks like. This is it. This is that whole memo that will come from the militarychildcare.com site. So this is the last step that you're going to be completing within MCC. And so that's why I said, if that CDC care may not work for your family, once you get this, you can go back and cancel the request at that point. While this does list an MCC number, they are no longer involved in this reimbursement process after you have gotten this memo. Like this is their section. And now we're moving over to another section. And that's where we're still getting a little information on this one. So everything else is completed outside of MCC. We're seeing a little bit of back and forth on whether this is the last step to go to your travel management office, travel management company office, or do you purchase it directly? So how are we getting the reimbursement? How are we making sure that you get that? At this time, we are encouraging people to go to your travel management company office to book that commercial travel for your named trusted caregiver after you have your memo. If you get to your TMC and they don't know what you're talking about, they don't know how to process it, they say you're not supposed to do that through here, and you want to be really cautious here not to make a mistake and not to miss out on the reimbursement, feel free to reach out to us. We can help kind of track down who you should be talking to at that location, because we also want to make sure that you do not miss this piece. Next. And let me take a second here because I did see a comment come in. So here we go. So is it retroactive? Meaning if we moved to the area and had to sign up for the wait list, which we're still on, with no anticipated slot, since we're single, can we now retract the request and still be allowed to use the assistance? Yes. So a couple of things. One, this program, unlike some of the branches roll through childcare where for their fee assistance programs, this is not going to fall under that category because it's not a childcare entitlement. This is entirely separate. So think of it more as if it is, a PCS related expense and reimbursement. In a way, it is retroactive. Unfortunately, it could only be active as of October 1 of this year. So what you're going to run into there is you would have had to PCS or have your report date after October 1. So it would need to be in the last few weeks. But for our families who may be a month or two down the road, yes. So up to 90 days prior or after your data care needed, you can go ahead and request that memo, which is what triggers this entire process. So as long as you request it, and what we're seeing right now is go ahead and submit it for the reimbursement within a year of your report date, then you should be able to access this program. That's a good question. So this section here is kind of subjective, where we talk about what we love in this and where we might still be a little bit worried. And you heard some of this through our what we're learning language. This is a new program. So I anticipate we will be learning a lot over the next few months. What we love is the flexibility in care options. We know that traditional care does not work for every family. We see this especially with our EFMP families or our families that have older and younger children, so our mixed age demographics. And so the flexibility in being able to bring your own care provider and not have to go out of pocket, especially our Oconus families, $1,200. We love to hear that. Second, it's out of the box thinking. I truly believe, and I know everyone who works with me and just works in military childcare in general knows that we're going to need a lot of solutions to come and meet families where they are today. So out of the box thinking, I always praise, especially when it is not just traditional childcare options. We love that it's going to be reducing the PCS costs of families with children, and with a bit of an asterisk here, right? You were going to be paying for this likely anyway. And so what we have been able to do is kind of bring what this program has been able to do is bring that cost down a little bit. We know that families are going thousands of dollars out of pocket with every relocation. And so with this program, we're really hoping that reduces some of that financial burden. And we also love that it's not branch specific. So if you are, and I'm sorry, Coast Guard, because I know that you guys probably get the brunt of this, there are different rules for different branches in different locations, and it can make it really complicated for families. And so I love that this is so clean, and we're able to say, this is it, this is the entitlement, this is how you get not your entitlement, this is the reimbursement, this is how you get your memo. So love that it's not branch specific. The areas where I know I'm a bit worried, and probably just learning more, I'm sure Maria, feel free to chime in here as well, is our EFMP families. So we know that our EFMP families would greatly benefit from this. We see that with the CCYH program as well. I'm a little worried based on the CDC language that our EFMP families may not get the full benefit of this program, but we are still learning that piece. And so I really hope I'm wrong. I'm worried about families who are geographically dispersed. So the original language called out very specifically child development center. I have seen some military operated childcare, which could allude to FCCs, but I haven't seen anything final on that yet. We're still learning. That means that you cannot access this program if you are not at a CDC. That is the language that we have right now. There's no CDC at your upcoming duty station. You can't access this program.
I mean, Kayla, I'm immediately concerned when we're looking at the families that have reached out for support. So we're talking about most of our recruiting units are geographically dispersed. So I'm concerned there. I'm concerned about any of our folks that are doing remote assignments or anywhere where they're at a school or they are at a long-term TDY, anywhere where they have to go with PCS orders, that they are limited to that. So I'm really curious to see how that impacts usage for families, and if there will be an ability to adjust this going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I can think of a couple of installations. You're right, our recruiter families. Absolutely. I'm also thinking of our like Arnold Air Force Base. So they are, kind of there in the middle of nowhere. They don't have an FCC or CDC. And then we're also thinking of, the Edlin area. Crestview is in the news quite frequently because they don't have a CDC. They're supposed to travel, but if they're stationed up there with the 7th Special Forces Group, does that count as a CDC? If they would have to travel, if they're not actually stationed there. So I think that's that kind of language that I'm really looking forward to getting some more clarity on in this process. We are worried about the initial cost of this. It is a reimbursement program. So similar to, MCCYN, and that you need to pay first and then you get money back after. You would need to have this money initially in order to pay for this and then wait for your reimbursement. So that's kind of that aspect of reducing the PCS costs of families with children, in that you would be spending it anyway. If this was something that your family needed, but at least now there's a chance for the reimbursement. So that initial cost is still a concern and still something we're looking at. The OCONUS implications is a concern as well. There are requirements for going to live overseas, and there are days, there's limits depending on where you are, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days without a visa, or you need to leave the country, and there could be implications. And so that OCONUS area, especially if you have a caregiver living with you long-term, it's a concern right now. Finding a caregiver, that is, I know Maria can attest to this too, that is something that we are frequently helping families with navigating in our case management, is finding a non-traditional caregiver. And it's not easy right now. And that's why we see a lot of those families on Facebook.
Well, and we don't want to assume anything, right, when it comes to meeting military families where they're at, whether it's their family setup or where it's the mission that they're serving. And so, based on the families we've been serving most recently, we have a special focus on our single parent families and active duty specifically, and trying to figure out how to support them. We've seen an uptick in single parent, in fact, senior NCO, single parents with EFM children over the age of 10. That has been my largest demographic the last few months. And so the assumption here is that everybody has a healthy family where they have grandparents that are retired or that could just jump on over there, or maybe a best friend that could come. And that's not necessarily the case for everybody. So I know we're thinking pretty critically about what else is out there when it comes to being able to help families navigate this. And to Kayla's point, what breaks my heart on a daily basis, multiple times a day, is when I'm seeing families out of necessity in their situation. Hey, who wants to come watch my child? Who can come over and do this? And so I'm consistently concerned about how we're making these resources available for families. So this is a huge step in the process. And how are we looking at families of today and not only making solutions for families of the past? And so understanding who is willing and ready to be able to serve in these capacities. So this constantly has me thinking, and I'm excited about the opportunities that we kind of still need to get after here.
Yeah, absolutely. And then my last, where we worry is that commercial travel requirement. One, again, still learning that language, whether it needs to go through your TMC or not. What we know is that families, when they PCS, try to keep their costs as low as humanly possible. And that initial cost would frequently lead people to do things that may not be the most convenient, like driving for 43 hours instead of flying, because it's more cost effective. And so that commercial travel requirement where you cannot be reimbursed for mileage or anything associated, outside of that commercial ticket, has a bit of a concern here, because I do fear that it's going to prevent some of our families who do need to cut costs, who can't afford to wait for $1,000 ticket to be reimbursed to them. They're going to utilize non-commercial and then as a result not be eligible. But I am hoping that we are incorrect in that, and that's something that we learn as we explore this program. Okay. So next, I am going to hand this over to anyone in the comments who has anything. I will keep an eye on. Maria, can you talk a little bit?
Yeah, let me wrap this up really quick on where this matters. So we've seen, this is one of the best efforts we've seen of strategic communications coming through the articles we've seen, the social media. So this is the first time that a lot of folks are talking about it. More leaders than I've ever seen before on a program are sharing this through email with their folks. And I'm just really encouraged that we are taking the stance that this is a leadership challenge and opportunity in every single situation where there is a family with children involved. And so this is what I really want to leave our folks with, is at leaders at all levels. When you hear someone getting ready to PCS or talking about PCS orders, please make sure they know about this opportunity for travel reimbursement for a caregiver. Make sure they know how the option, make sure they know how to apply. You can share this video where we just walk through the steps. Because as Kayla mentioned, even if you receive the memo and elect not to use it, there's no harm, but you can't do it after the fact. So this is a really neat opportunity for us to get creative on making sure this is brought up to every single person that's PCSing. And again, I charge our leaders and our families, even if you don't have children right now, or they are grown, or whatever that case may be, let's get really focused on the fact that childcare is a mission readiness issue, not just a nice to have. And so this is just another cool opportunity to meet families where they're at and make this as easy as possible with the work that's already been done. So if you have questions, please reach out. We want to make sure everybody knows what's going on here.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. We did get one question. Someone in the comments wants to know, can you book commercial travel for a caregiver that isn't part of the DoD? So someone who is not military affiliated and a true civilian. And from what we are seeing in the language, yes, absolutely. So the TMC piece is a little confusing, right? Because typically we do utilize TMC for only DoD oriented affiliated people, whether it is official or leisure travel. But the regulations are specifically saying right now that it does need to go through TMC. So yes, is going to be the short answer. Please try to do that first, since that is what the words are currently telling us. And we want to follow the words as closely as possible until we have outside information. If you run into any issues with that, if they don't know what you're talking about, or they can't do it for you because this is your caregiver would be a civilian, please reach out so we can get you in contact with the right people to make sure that it's going to be streamlined and there's not any chance here that you're going to be kicked back and not reimbursed for that, especially if you have done the steps that were outlined. So that was a wonderful question. Okay, so as always, as we access more information, we are going to be passing that along. If you are a family who would like support as you navigate this, please come into our case management. We would love to walk through it with you, especially as we're all learning. And if you are a family who would like to share your experience in accessing this program, I know it's only been out for 11 days so far, so you may not have tried, but if you've given it a go, we would love to hear from you, your feedback. As you saw in the initial slide, there is a report due to Congress on whether or not this program should become permanent. Family voices are rarely included as part of this report, and our aim here is to make sure that that is not true for this program. We want your voices to be as vital in this as the data is, as we end up pushing this back. So this presentation is going to be available in the education section of our website, and the video is going to be available on Facebook and YouTube. You will be able to click the slideshow, so you'll be able to click the links when we post it. We will circle back to our comments section, because we know not everyone can watch this live, to answer any questions. And if we don't have an answer, we'll add them to our list of growing questions when we roll out a part 2 of this. So feel free to send any if you're watching this, days from now. We're still going to be checking. Thank you all for your time. Maria, do you have anything final? Good to go. All right. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone, and we'll be in touch soon. Take care.